discussing Girl in a Band by Kim Jordan. Kim Jordan is part of Sonic Youth. She was part of Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth got dismantled a while ago. This is a band that I grew up with. A band from the 80s and 90s, sort of predecessor of the grunge scene, part of the grunge scene, but more through association than through style. Friends with Kurt Cobain and all those people. And they grew out of the New York conceptual art scene of the 60s and 70s. Kim, I think, was born in the 50s, so her age is sort of, she was maturing as an individual sort of in the early 70s, and then moved to New York City. And so the book is about her life, and it's a great book. It's one of those rare occasions, I think, when you can actually read an autobiography. I think autobiographies are too much focused on the auto and not so much on the bio. This one is, I think, the other way around. I think she's a very thoughtful person. She has a lot of things to say. She has a very good story. Regardless of what she did and whether she's important as an artist or not, it doesn't matter. What matters in any book is always the story. I am a strong believer in the idea that there's no such thing as biography or novel or short story or any of that stuff. There's just story. And when the story is good, whether it's an autobiography or a novel, or it doesn't actually matter. What really matters is, do you get any visceral reaction? Does it make you want to work? Or at least does it make you think? This is the way I judge books. And this book makes me want to work. It makes me think for sure, but it also makes me work. So in that sense, it's a good piece of work. I think the three things that I want to highlight from reading the book is, number one, once and foremost, again, the New York art scene of the 70s and 80s. It was a defining art scene for my own character development. I'm not considering myself an artsy person, but I was influenced by a lot of things that happened in those days. And all of these things happened before I was mature to even consume it. But I guess I still consumed it either directly or indirectly through friends and cousins and older people in my life. And then myself, when I sort of hit my early teen years and started to get exposed to, whether it's the Velvet Underground or Lou Reed or Warhol or Basquiat or Phil Glass, or what I find exciting about this is the second thing I want to say is really the idea when things culminate into a movement. I live in Silicon Valley right now, and as we live here in real time, we're watching the same thing happen in tech. When people congregate, when ideas congregate, when things happen, and when this one got influenced by that one, and this happened because there was something that happened before. And I find it so fascinating how geographically concentrated these movements are. I think the third thing I want to say is about Kim's life herself and sort of the way she wrote about it. I really appreciate the way she used thoughtful contemplation and mixed it up with storytelling. The death of Kurt Cobain, her own marriage problems. Like she did a very good job on that front. And I think, just as a sort of stylistic comment here, I am in the process of writing my own biography, and I think you can learn from this book. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's May 1st, 2024. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is down 2.3%. The market is down 60 basis points. For the year, we are down 17.1%. The market is up 5.1%. We're underperforming by 22.2%. I want to start with, I'm discussing Kim Jordan's book, A Girl in a Band. Just real quick for people that don't know, she is part of Sonic Youth, which is sort of a conceptual art band from the 80s and 90s. They grew out of New York, and they really epitomized the New York art scene and the New York music scene of that time. So they're not exactly the Ramones or Blondie or Talking Heads. I would say they're even a little bit more artsy, more extreme, more unique, more authentic than even the Talking Heads. Definitely more than Blondie and Ramones. So What is the music? I think the best is just go and listen to the music. I don't want to describe it too much, but what I can just express my own relationship to Sonic Youth. I always felt like it's inspiring, and still is actually. Even if I listen to Kim Jordan's recent records that you can listen to on her website, it's the same music, but still has this this groovy undertone, this rhythm that isn't a rhythm, the sound that isn't a sound, and the lyrics that are lyrics. So she's a poet. I would say the best way to describe Sonic Youth is poetic noise, or poetry with noise. Maybe that's the way to say it. Poetry with noise. They were very inspiring to me when I was a teenager, and then sort of grew into my 20s. In my teen years, I actually was part of a music scene myself in Switzerland. I didn't go far, and I think this is unfortunately part of the conversation here, unfortunately, in a sense that if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, I think no matter what your talents are, you're just not gonna be able to get somewhere. And I think that's, like I said in the prelude, one of the big takeaways, in my opinion, of this book is how important the convolution of movement, people, ideas can be. In this case, the conceptual art movement of New York City, 60s and 70s, that sort of got mixed up with the beatniks, and then again, got influenced by pop art, conceptual art. You have people like Warhol, Basquiat, and Richter, Lichtenstein. You have lesser artists like Schnabel, maybe Klein, that sort of mingled in there. I would consider Kim Gordon also less of an artist, visual artist. But still you have, it's very similar to Silicon Valley. Like you just have a very big movement with lots and lots of influences, and then you have things got spit out, things happen. It's a fascinating process to me. It's hard to describe how it actually works. I'm living right now the same thing in tech here in Silicon Valley. Some might say it's whether this is the peak of Silicon Valley or not, or whatever. I can't judge. I haven't been around in the early days, but I can sense the excitement. I can sense the potential that, in this case, AI is offering. Here it's a little bit more linear. Maybe you have a new paradigm shift in technology. It starts with science, and then it translates into technology, and then eventually translates into entrepreneurship, which would be the equivalent of art and the art gallery. So once ideas transcend into actual art, it becomes interesting for people outside to watch and participate. And that was the process that Kim Jordan went through in the 70s and 80s as she moved to New York and then founded Sonic Youth and was with Sonic Youth for 30 years. So her life, her story, it's a great story, very well told. I think from an art perspective, she has, like I said, she has lots to offer in the sort of, in the crossroads of poetry and sound, not music, but sound. And that's where I would position Sonic Youth and herself. I think for people that care about the acoustic word or the melodic poetry, this is where Sonic Youth lives, and this is where I believe the potential of the band was tapped. I think we live in different times today. So whoever is thinking about starting a band or whether you want to be influenced by them or not, any of that stuff, it's irrelevant to me. I wouldn't even want to discuss that. I think there's a broader question that I just want to throw out there as a tangent, which is, where is the art world today? Okay, where is the New York art scene of the 80s today? And unfortunately, these things are very hard to pin down. In a sense, it's hard to say it's where it's at today. I mean, there's certainly New York still a big art center, but so is Berlin, so is Hong Kong, and you have to be very careful when you talk like that, because there's a distinction between between the supermarket and the actual creation. And New York and Berlin and so on and so forth, they're supermarkets. There's very little creation happening there. And where the creation actually is today, I would say it's probably somewhere where you wouldn't expect it. I think generative AI is the paradigm shift, not just for AI and science, but also for the arts. And I would expect it to proliferate through applications of generative AI. I'm sorry, this is a tangent. This is not discussed in the book by any means, but I want to use the book as a springboard for that. The way I think about the art world going forward is like the way I think about science, which is that the human contribution, the creative part, is not going to be in the concept or even in the creation of the art. It's going to be in the curation of the data set and the development of the algorithm that will produce the art. So that's the art of the 21st century, of the first half of the 21st century, starting from today. That's the way I see it. I'm going to discuss this a lot deeper. I'm actually writing an essay about this. So I'm thinking about this quite a bit. Now, let me talk about the second thing I want to talk about, which is sort of her own development as a human. And I think it's very interesting to put her in context of her time. Like, I think, and that's what you should do with anybody who writes a biography. No matter how much you are unique and 0 to 1 and all that, you can't escape your own time. And this woman is born in a time when women are ascending to some sort of equivalence that you could argue is, based on equality. And what I mean with that is not just the fact that she was able to be a rock star or anything like that, or get equal pay. None of that, which is important in itself, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is her own recognition and self-respect as a person to create and be, and not just sell her body or sell her motherhood or whatever a woman was supposed to do or is still supposed to do. I think she transitioned into a fully fledged, unique entity, a human being, Kim Jordan or Gordon. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing the name maybe. So that, to me, it's interesting. And that's the time, whether a modern Kim Jordan, a 20-something Kim Jordan today would have the same trajectory, I doubt it. Today, the fight is a different fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean it in a positive way. The achievements, the goalposts, all of these things are different. Some of them are still the same. I think we still all have to fight for the self-respect that we deserve relative to ourselves, and that's the most important one. The less important one is the one to the outside that most people actually obsess about. That's not so important because you can't control that. What you can control is your own introspection and the way you see yourself. And I think Kim has done a great job at that. In the book, it comes across, I think she's at peace with herself. I think she has achieved what is to be achieved for a girl born in the 1950s. And that's great. That's just liberating. And I think that's what really inspires me about the book more than anything else. This balance, here's somebody who, she's done it. And you can do it too. You, meaning me or whoever else is listening or reading the book. The last thing I want to talk about here is, like I said, when I say the last thing, not sort of in a bad way, just the sort of the next point I want to make here is the stylistic part. I always discuss that with books because I'm a writer myself, so I'm interested, and I think this is tied to what I just said before. I think biographies can be really indulgent, narcissistic, narratives, and this is not one of those. I think Kim's very generous with her thoughts. She's generous with her experiences, with her story. She shares intimate stuff about her own life and about her friends, like people like Kurt Cobain, for example. So she's generous without provoking voyeuristic feelings in the reader, which I think is a great stylistic balance that she was able to strike, and I believe that comes from her poetry background. She's skilled with words. words and also skilled with performance. And she was able to perform a show here that inspires you, that gives you insight into her story. But again, there's no voyeurism, whether it's you know, her marriage, or Kurt Cobain, or some of the other stuff. Larry Gagosian is a character in the book. So there's enough room here to create headlines, even scandals, if you will, and none of that transpires, not to me at least. And I think that's to say the authenticity of Kim and Sonic Youth. She kept that alive, and that's great. So to summarize, Kim Jordan, A Girl in the Band, autobiography by the bass player and singer of Sonic Youth. It's about her life. I think the three things that I noted here. Number one is the life of Kim, which is depicted here, and it's satisfying to see somebody that achieves the self-respect and the authenticity that she strived to achieve throughout her life. So it's like a closure. I think second, the depiction of the New York art scene is just something that fascinates me, how regions, areas, geographic regions can morph into these prolific incubators of new ideas. And you know, New York in the 70s and 80s was one of those things. And then stylistically, she's able to create a narrative, a personal narrative without voyeurism, which I think is just stylistically very remarkable. Thank you.